Quail log, October 30th, 2022. So today I gave everyone all the new birds their first sandbox since they've been with me. The older birds did their normal. As soon as the sandboxes were in there, they jumped in and they were throwing sand everywhere. The newer pharaohs almost ignored it altogether. Didn't even, and one of them stepped in it, but then was eating. Didn't do anything about it. My one male, who's down below, he didn't do much with it to begin with. But all of my sparkly, fancier birds, they at least got into it after a few minutes. And once they got into it, the other birds started doing a little more. They had just quieted down as I was setting up my camera. My alarm went off, and it scared them quite a bit. So most of them quieted down, and they're just now getting back to playing in the sand. So a few other things that I probably should talk about that have changed since I got the new birds is that I did lose one of the females of the pharaohs. It was last Monday morning, and as I was heading to work, I noticed that one of them was up against the front of the cage edge, and when I checked on her, she was cold and stiff. I believe that it was more a matter of the not having enough room, and she may have got her head stuck in one of the bars, and with the way they were shoving around with 5 of them in there, I believe she may have broke her neck, and that was the problem. So the next day, I didn't get around to really doing anything other than getting her out of there and cleaning the cage up a little bit on Monday, and also dealing with the loss of a bird already. So when I finally started looking at them closer on Tuesday, I realized that the male of the pharaohs had a nice stripe across his head where all the feathers were gone, which told me that the girls in with the pharaoh were picking on him. So we ended up separating. The girls are now in one of the top cages, and the male pharaoh is down in the cage down below by himself. At the same time as I moved those guys around, I took down the partition between in the center cage and the cage that I have my fancier birds in. And so now they have the 2 wide for 5 of them. We have 3 in a cage up top. My older pharaohs, they have their 2 wide for 5 of them. And right now, my boy is sitting by himself of the pharaohs. I haven't figured out which one is the male of the fancier ones. I figure whenever we finally get around to banding them, hopefully maybe this week, we'll be able to vintage check and see if we can figure out who it is. Because I have an idea that it may be what a bird we're calling red, but I'm not sure. It's harder to tell with the speckles and the tuxedos and the grays and all that, what sex they are. It's not like the pharaohs that it's very obvious that in the lower left-hand corner, that is our male. He has a very orange breast, and there is no speckles to his breast at all. So I'm pretty sure he's our male, and that my 3 up top are females. So we'll see how it works. I know in the long run, my goal was to buy 2 more of the open walls for the center and make this to where it's just 2 big layers, and usually keep my fancy on one layer and my pharaohs on another. But that's for next spring that's going to be happening. So right now, at least they're separated. I may decide that's going to happen sooner rather than later, but we'll see. The other thing that has changed that I finally did this last weekend that I had planned to record on this week until I lost one of the birds is that I switched out the mirror trays. Instead of the black plastic ones, I went to Advanced Auto and picked up the larger drip trays from there. These are 24 inches wide versus the 20 inches wide of the ones that come with it. The 24 inches wide means that it stretches out underneath the front of the cage and keeps stuff from falling down into the food tray of the birds down below. That's probably the biggest reason that I switched to it. And originally I was going to do black on the bottom and then do the metal trays up on top. but I finally decided it was just as easy to use metal trays all around. So I've got 4 of them, so it's easy to switch them out. And this helps keep less stuff fall on the floor. But if you can see right now, there is sand going everywhere, which is normal. It's just now I have 15 or 14 birds throwing sand everywhere, and so there is sand out of both ends of the cages. So it's going to make cleanup today a little more fun. And now that I'm dealing with 3 times the birds, so manure trays definitely this week has been. And you know it after 2 days, you can definitely smell it, unlike before where I could go 4 or 5 days and it wasn't too bad. I don't know how much of that was because the birds were still less than a week on the new food. I didn't smell them as bad this weekend. And after cleaning in the cages on Thursday or Friday, I don't remember which day it was. I think it was Thursday. So the fact that I cleaned them yesterday, you could smell them, but it wasn't nearly as bad as it was when I tried or I had to clean them on Sunday of last week, which is part of what makes me believe that the one bird broke her neck, because when I cleaned the cages and cleaned the trays on Sunday evening, all of them looked just fine. None of them were showing any signs of distress. I didn't see any feathers pulled out when I checked on everyone, so they seemed to be doing good then. And when I found them on Monday morning, that's what makes me believe that I've probably had too many in one of these cages. I believe this, especially looking at the difference of my older birds and the new birds on the top shelf now. Let's see if I can get some pictures of these guys where it shows a little better. It's hard to see through that, but there is the new ones are probably about 2/3 or it's the size of my older birds, which definitely tells me that if they were having problem getting 5 into one of these cages, it probably should only be about 3, which is what I've kind of had over here for the longest time, is I had 6 and 2 wide. But the other thing that I'm noticing that probably should have made me think better is that there are only 5 slots, or I guess there's 6 slots. There's only really 5 good slots for them to put their heads through and eat. Well, with their shoulders and stuff, they really can't all be out there eating at the same time. So that should have made me realize that they weren't going to do very well with that. And it's something I'll just have to know in the future, that it's that I can't do more than 3 in one of these cages and still be able to let them eat comfortably. I think the water situation is also something that if I have 5 of them in there and there's only the 1 nipple in the back, I don't think that's the best for them. So, but as you can see, everyone seems to be happy and is either playing in the sand or eating out here. So after a little over a week, we seem to be doing good. I was hoping my Mel would come up and I could get a better look at his head, but that may be later on tonight when I feed them. He's not as quick to come out and eat as some of the others are when I give him new food, and kind of the worms don't really attract them as much, but as you can see, I've already had an egg this morning. At least from what I can tell, everyone's doing well. These guys are hunkered down around the dish, so they're not quite as wild about the sand yet as what the older birds are, but I'm not sure if they've had sand before and what they've dealt with or not. Oh, that's also something else I added. As I found looking at the birds on the bottom shelf was really hard to do because it was so dark down there. So I had a desk lamp at the house that wasn't being used that has a soft light to it. So it is sitting on the shelf behind them, so I can easily see in and see the bottom shelf and see them a whole lot better than what I could when there was no light back there at all. So that has been one of the other changes that I made since, and I didn't think about when I'd had the other birds down here on the bottom shelf. I didn't have the tray above them, so they had plenty of light. But now that I'm down on the bottom shelf, they don't have nearly as much light and as much to making it easier to see what's going on. So, all right, well, I guess that's an update on where they're at right now. We'll see if I end up adding any more when I feed them tonight.